again until the start of next month. So letters have been sent to several major trading partners confirming the new levies will kick in on August the 1st. More are expected for countries who fail to agree a trade deal with the US. So let's have a look at some of the new tariffs that were announced this week. So the US has said it's planning to impose a new 25% tariff on products entering the country from South Korea and Japan. Japan sent almost $150 billion in goods to the US last year, making it America's fifth biggest supplier of imports. South Korea was also in the top 10. Trump also set out plans for a 40% tariff on goods from Myanmar and Laos and 35% on goods from Bangladesh. Meanwhile, South Africa found out it will receive a 30% tariff from the 1st of August. With the latest, here's our North America business correspondent, Michelle Fleury.
The president has again delayed the imposition of the so-called reciprocal tariffs that he first announced on April 2nd.
We have these beautiful letters.
The letters he sent to Japan, South Korea, Malaysia and others described the US's commitment to what he called a great trading relationship, but said that the new tariff rates were necessary to address the US's trade deficits with those countries. All new tariff rates will apparently now go into effect on August 1st, but Mr. Trump also issued a threat to further increase tariffs on countries which aligned themselves with what he claimed were the anti-American policies of the BRICS group of developing nations. So that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa and 5 others, currently all meeting in Brazil. Speaking in Rio, Brazil's president responded angrily to Mr. Trump's threat.
No queremos. Imperador.
So we don't want an emperor. Our countries are sovereign. If Trump issues tariffs, other countries have the right to do the same. There is the reciprocity law. I think it's not responsible for a president from a country like the United States to threaten the world with tariffs on social media. Honestly, there are other forums for the president of a country the size of the United States to talk to other countries.
Even by the standards of the second Trump administration, it's been a turbulent 24 hours for global trading relations, with more uncertainty ahead.
Michelle Fleury there. Well, for more, I spoke to Carl Handley, who's Professor of Economics at the University of California, San Diego. I asked him whether this is all about the negotiation.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's what's going on here. They need more time, because they haven't got what they wanted, and I'm not sure they will.
And what does that say? Because this deadline, July 9th, has been looming large for, 3 months pretty much, and yet they haven't got the deals done yet.
Yeah, I think they have turned back the clock significantly on a lot of the trade concessions that the U.S. has negotiated with these countries over the course of 40 or 50 years. And then want them to come back to the table with more, where the U.S. is kind of committed to keep its own tariffs at a minimum of 10%. And it's just not obvious that there's much that some of these countries like Japan and Korea, who already have a trade agreement with the United States, can give. And so I think they've run into that, and they've basically run out of time. It was rather preposterous that they were going to conclude 90-some deals in 90 days in the first place.
But if you listen to Scott Bessent and others, they're saying that the phone lines are ringing hot. All leaders are wanting to cut a deal prior to this new deadline, August 1st. So what can we expect, do you think? Some trading partners like the European Union, which is one of the biggest, is still yet to cut a deal.
Yeah, so I think that's a great point. And what we're seeing is that some of the bigger countries or country groups like the European Union that probably have a lot more bargaining power are holding out and probably not offering the administration everything that it wants. I think that's the other reason why Trump was rather incensed that the BRICS countries, as you mentioned earlier, have to some degree sort of indicated they might try to ally against the United States. And that's, again, going to be a very large block of countries that might have more bargaining power versus the U.S. Trying to pick off everyone one by one or industry by industry.
Well, as we mentioned, Japan and South Korea are two of the US trading partners hit with 25% tariffs. The yen has fallen against the dollar following the news. Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has said that Japan would continue negotiations with the US to seek a bilateral trade deal. Meanwhile, South Korea is saying it is intensifying trade talks. Alongside a flurry of reaction from the region, here's our Asia business reporter, Katie Silver.
When we started this day, there did seem to be a lot more of, I guess, appeasing, saying, "Oh, we're keen to continue negotiations. We will continue to defend, the markets." We heard, for example, from South Korea saying that they were going to rush immediately to defend any market volatility, but very much about wanting to continue negotiations. I would say that the dialogue in the last hour or two does seem to be a little bit more robust. We've heard, for example, from Thailand's finance minister saying that they're not going to back down in their trade negotiations with the United States. We heard from him posting on X saying that he didn't think that the White House had considered their latest proposal because Thailand yesterday offered a lot of concessions to Washington, namely, for example, buying up Boeings and offering greater access for US energy into the Thai market, saying basically they didn't think that that had been considered yet. We've also heard from South Korea saying that any sort of trade deal would need to include both auto as well as steel sectoral tariffs. And of course, at the moment, these are more or less blanket across the board. The only country really that we've seen get any kind of exemption on these tariffs is, of course, the UK when it comes to car exemptions for up to 100,000 cars. South Korea is saying any deal would also need to include that. So in that sense, it does seem like it has become a little bit more robust. We've also heard from Japan. You mentioned that quote from Shigeru Ishiba. He also said that Japan wasn't going to be making any easy concessions. They were going to have robust talks and that they were going to, quote, defend what they need to defend. And of course, Shigeru Ishiba actually his government faces a key election in about 2 or so weeks. So he has these domestic issues at hand as well that he has to focus on as well. So interestingly, it's quite a mixed picture here. The markets, more or less, it's a sea of both green and red. So it doesn't seem like the markets are really finding this announcement any particular way. We're also hearing from the likes of Bangladesh. They're saying that they're going to negotiate, and Malaysia also hoping for something similar.
Katie Silver there in our Asia Business Hub, where we've also had reaction to those tariffs from South Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa, who you can see here, has questioned the reasoning behind the US's decision to impose a 30% tariff on all goods from South Africa going to the US. In a statement, Mr. Ramaphosa said it was based on a contested interpretation of the balance of trade between South Africa and the United States. Well, financial markets are trading across Europe now, and they've had a bit of a muted sort of day so far. They've only been going for about 40 minutes or so. On Wall Street, we saw quite sharp declines following the announcements of the new tariffs from the White House. All major US indexes closing in the red on Monday because of the new uncertainty. Michael Field, who's European equity strategist at Morningstar, said that it's likely markets will be responding to every twist and turn.
Exactly right, Sally. And normally an extension of this tariff kind of stay, if you will, would be taken as good news by markets. But obviously, when further threats of increased tariffs are thrown out along with it, the market is taking that pretty badly.
Yeah, and also we're looking at things like the yen weakening quite sharply in response. I mean, what do you expect to happen over the next few days? I mean, now that he said, okay, August 1st is the date, I guess markets are now again on tenterhooks up until then. And yet this is the summer season when we see sharp volatility because of thin trading levels.
I think that's exactly right. And there's been very little other news flow as well, as you know, to kind of move markets. Obviously, earnings season begins later this week in the US. But until that point, there's very little fundamental data in which to move markets. So investors are really looking to kind of geopolitics and to see whether that gives us some steer on what kind of future revenues and earnings and things like this are going to look like for companies.